My next patron question is from Hayden, who wanted me to compare two teen comedies that look at the world of cliques. Which is better, Heathers or Mean Girls? Both of them are also known for their acerbic senses of humor, featuring teenagers with sharp tongues and the sniping that can very much happen among young people. Both of these movies have strong followings, and deservedly so. But which do I prefer? I'm going to give the slight edge to Heathers. This is a movie that probably comes off differently today than it likely did in the late 80s, but it still works as a darkly funny satire. Screenwriter Daniel Waters peppers the movie with so many instantly iconic lines, especially the barbs from the Heathers. Michael Lehmann also deserves credit for his direction, especially in the way he uses color and lighting to highlight the detached world of this school. Other locations, like a church and the woods, also have a surreal look to them, and I think that aspect played a role in making Heathers stand out from other teen comedies of that era. The chemistry between Winona Ryder and Christian Slater also works in elevating the film, as we see how JD's actions have an effect on Veronica and her moral compass. Ryder is excellent, and even Slater deciding to do the entire performance in a Jack Nicholson impression somehow works. Now, over the last 20 years, the concept of high school students being murdered by a trenchcoat-wearing psychopath has become more uncomfortable to watch. Ditto the fact that Veronica and JD frame these deaths as suicides. It's made Heathers less of a comedy and more of a prescient depiction of the darker side of high school. This has caused the satiric elements of the film to land much harder and become even more shocking than when the movie was originally released. And yet, if anything, this has allowed Heathers to age superbly well. It ultimately becomes the story of a teenage girl who realizes her power fantasies are not as gratifying when played out in real life, and there are consequences in feeling ill will towards people. The movie has unfortunately become more relevant, but it's a credit to Lehmann and Waters that they succeed in pulling off this tough subject matter. I do think Heathers gets a little long-winded in the third act, but that's a minor issue. Mean Girls is not as dark as Heathers, but it nonetheless has a lot of bite to it. Watching it again, I was most impressed by how laugh-out-loud funny it still is. A lot of credit for this goes to Tina Fey, who wrote the screenplay and inserted her trademark offbeat sense of humor into this story of a teenage girl trying to fit into a new school. Like Heathers, there are a number of lines that have entered popular culture, mainly said by the titular Mean Girls, nicknamed the Plastics.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
The Plastics are not just written as one-dimensional villains, and they arguably go through as much development as the lead protagonist Katie does. The casting department also deserves applause for how perfectly chosen the young actors are. Rachel McAdams brings such a devilish confidence to Regina George. Lacey Chabert is able to successfully show Gretchen grappling with no longer being Regina's number two, and Amanda Seyfried is hilarious as the not-very-bright Karen. Lindsay Lohan also does a great job as Katie. She was a really promising young actress with a potentially bright future, and Mean Girls is just one example of her talent. The movie manages to satirize the traditional high school comedy and the whole concept of cliques in a clever and funny way, and scenes actually happen to progress the plot and characters rather than merely for humor's sake. For example, the scene where Katie has lunch with the Plastics for the first time manages to properly establish them and define their individual quirks and conversation styles. The Jingle Bell Rock sequence was put in not just to have a dance number halfway through. It's actually a pivotal moment for Katie, Regina, and Gretchen. I'm surprised Tina Fey has not gotten a screenplay credit since Mean Girls, although she has been prolific with her television series. I would love to see her write another movie, as she clearly has a knack for story structure and character development. One funny detail I noticed on this viewing is how bad the bus drivers in the movie are. There are a few scenes where they don't see teenage girls clearly about to cross the street, and one is even hit by a bus. Is it the same bus driver or multiple ones? How do they get their license if they are driving so recklessly and speeding in a school zone? I did not dock points for this, just an interesting observation I made. I will say my high school did not have the whole clique thing these movies show. Everyone's sort of commingled with each other, but then again, every school is different. Let me know whether you prefer Mean Girls or Heathers, and thank you for your question, Hayden.